All right, so on to the muffler. Take the same, 5/16? Yep. These muffler bolts are always kind of chunky and make very concerning noises when they break loose. That is on there pretty good. Now keep in mind, I'm not prying super hard on these fins. I don't want to break those off. Just a little bit. All right, so we can actually see into, well, kind of into the cylinder right in there. And you can turn, not that side, so you just pull the starter cord and see the piston move in there. It's got a little bit of scoring or scratching, maybe. Overall, it doesn't look too bad. It's always something to check. You know, if you're doing this and it just looks absolutely totaled, you're better off fixing that before you do all this other stuff. Because once you get it done, you want to run it. And least you can do is get the parts ordered and then finish everything else you're doing. So I have not actually done a 170 muffler. So this is slightly new to me, I guess. So it is, let's some of this build up off here. That was not running efficiently. It's got so much just carbon buildup and sludge and stuff everywhere. It is a clamshell type design, so they've crimped it around the edges. And it looks like, yep, they've got, I don't know if you guys can see this. Yeah, you can see it. See in here, they got this plate, and back in here, there's some baffle, something or another. Down here, it's like a whole box, and that is keeping air from moving. So, well, it's moving, but it's not going in here and out of here. It's getting all clusterfucky, and it's not efficient. It's not streamlined. So when we start really putting the gas to it with the new carburetor, this is not going to be able to clear that out. So depending on how you look at it, if you start with the carburetor because you want to upgrade it, you don't have to do the muffler. But the main thing here was to port the muffler, so I had to change the carburetor. That makes sense. Get that popped off. Much stuff is all caked on there. Got spark screen, which we're gonna have to take that out. A lot of this, there are measurements, and we will get into that. That spark screen ain't going back in though. Absolutely not. That is. Now, if you're cutting in national forest or you own a tree service or whatever, you might be kind of forced into having to keep those in. But most people around here, They're just farmers. They're trying to get some trees out of their way. They just want a decent running little piece of machinery to get the job done. And they've probably recently set their field on fire anyway, so I'm going to have to get a torch for this one because it's bending. It's flexing a lot. This tab isn't bending out, so I'm going to go get my torch. I will be right back. Right, I have returned with a torch. Figure out a good way to get a hold of this thing. There we go. We're just going to heat up this very outside bit. See a lot of the stuff burning off. There's a lot of carbon on the inside too, so that's going to start burning off. Get all smoky. While it's hot, I'll try to start getting this pried up. We got this pretty well loose. Like this whole part, so we can get something. Yeah, wedge in there. And then whack it on this side. Yeah, there we go. You got it broke loose. It's moving anyway. There we go. See all the build up in there? That's not gloss finish, that is wet. So this is what they had in there for the baffle. Usually these are just what kind of looks like this. It's got a bunch of holes running all the way down. But either way, this disrupts the flow. And you can see just how wet, like greasy everything is, it was running too rich when it was running. So before we do anything else, I think I'm going to throw all of these in the parts cleaner for a little bit, and then we'll look at it and see what we need to do. All right, so got everything out of the parts cleaner. It didn't clean it up perfectly, but it got all the loose stuff out, which is all we really need for the moment. So I already did some of the math on this, and I will explain what I did and where I got the numbers. So this is the back of the muffler. This is what sits against the actual port on the cylinder coming out. So your exhaust, so this up against the saw, this is the front of the muffler. This hole in the front cannot be bigger than 70% of what this hole is. Otherwise, you're going to start running into some issues. Now, there's some very nuanced things, like I could probably make this bigger if I left these exactly where they were at, but I plan on opening them, so I don't understand all that quite so much. Basically, so this measurement, I went inside here and got my measurement this way, and it ended up being about 24 by 17 millimeters. About 24 by 17 millimeters, which leaves us with 408 millimeters square in this opening. So because this opening is not going to be exactly the same, it's very much a different shape. We're going to take that 408 square millimeter, because we need, like I said, you can go to 70%, but it starts getting a little bit dodgy. I would rather go with 65% and be on the safe side, and I will show you exactly why on this exhaust. So I went with 65%. 65% of that 408 ends up being 265 square millimeter. The on here, there's my, yeah, this will work. There we go. So I can only go from basically here to here on this. I can't cut out anything extravagant. So I measured from the top of this hole to the bottom of this one. It ended up being right about 9 millimeter. So I plugged in that 9 millimeter for my side height, and I took the 265 and divided it by 9, and that gave me 29.4. It's oddly specific, but I wrote it down just in case. So that tells me that if I take this to, I need to get a better caliper. We'll go like 29 and a half ish. Because like I said, we're at the 65%. So we have a little bit of leeway. And we put that on here, that takes us pretty much to both ends. But as you can see, I'm covering about half the hole. So if I take it off square with the outside of those holes, it'll probably take us up to about 67%. That's why it's nice to have that cushion. If you're banking on 70% and it just look weird, it's mostly covered, but it still bugs me. So basically our opening here should be about 9 millimeter by 29 and a half. and then a tiny bit more to kind of square off the edges. And that should give us, like I said, about 67, 68% opening here compared to the back. And then on this front piece, we'll get to this. There isn't any super special math, but there are a couple of things to keep in mind while doing this. So I'm going to get the rotary tool and the burr bits and everything set up, and we will come right back in. All right, so basically what I'm going to do, I take this drill bit, because it's not bigger than the space that we need the whole thing at. This is just going to help keep from having to use the burr bits so much. They wear out. They're not hard to use, but getting all this weird stuff cut out is kind of a pain. So we're just going to pop holes in that center hole all the way down, or as much as we can. Yeah, that'll work. All right, we got a lot of that chewed out of there anyway. We just got to clean up all the little nubs. And for this, I think we'll start with a round bit and see how that works. I'm still fairly new to how a lot of these burr bits function. I understand the basic premise. I just don't have a ton of time actually operating them. So it's always something new. So we're just going to try to get this cleaned up a bit. That was way more aggressive than I thought it would be, but we got this somewhat cleared out. There we go. This somewhat cleared out. The bulk of this stuff anyway. And then now while this might be kind of overkill for no more than this is, I could be doing worse things. So I got a small set of diamond bits. Probably not the greatest quality, honestly, but I said still fairly new. Don't know what brands are wonderful. And as long as these work for a little while, it's good enough. We're going to go in here and get some of like the sharp edges and kind of clean up the corners a bit. These don't jump nearly as bad. We'll clean up the inside a little too from burrs or anything. Just a quick once over. All right, so that's opened up. Now, I'm going to focus on this piece. So, what I have been doing, eventually I will have power out here, and well, I have power technically. Everything in this shop is run off an extension cord coming from my house. So, kind of have power. Also, kind of don't. So, then I will be getting like a welder, and I'll be able to actually, I weld for a living, so I'll be able to make these a lot nicer looking if I just make one instead of trying to modify the original one. But the main thing is this is a deflector. You want the heat going out away from the saw. You want to open this up so it can breathe, but you don't want it just shooting out the front all willy-nilly. You still want it to go to the side. So when you are taking these, when you're working with these, this angled piece that goes up, little pointer, these pieces that go up, 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 you want to leave those. What you want to take out is down here where it starts. Down, if you could focus, that would be amazing. You want to leave these high spots up here, right there. You want to take out in the low spots. So it opens this up, but it does not take away this angle up top to let all of the gas escape, if that makes sense. If you take down this angle, it's just gonna, it'll still deflect, but it's gonna be going more forward. If you take out from the very bottom down here, you're getting most of that deflection range, and you get all of it on this one. And I don't know, we might just take out this whole hump in the front here. Just might not be a bad idea. So yeah, let's get started on that. And for that, we're going to need a burr bit back again. About a diamond. Got some really small burr bits as well. And I'm thinking those might be the way to go here. Very tiny. Because we are working on tiny things, so makes sense. Let's see. We want to start on the low end. And so we got those all opened up. And I think on this last one, we are just going to take out this whole nub. It'd be handy if I had a cutoff wheel for this, but I do not. So we're just going to end up using a very grabby burr bit. And be very careful with my fingers. And hopefully be very careful with my fingers. Otherwise, I could see this being a very interesting and definitely not monetized video. So I'm just going to kind of try to brace it on the table and work my way over it like this. these done, somewhat cleaned up. That. Now remember, we took out this baffle. We're not putting that back in. We're not putting the spark filter, spark screen. What we are going to do though is go around the edges of this side, and we're going to go ahead and pry these up a little so it's easier to get the other side of the muffler back in. Okay, finally, after 15 minutes, I have never had that much trouble getting one of these on. I really need to call it a day. We're not quite done yet. Put this back on the front here. We get our two nuts. Those on. Now this will make the saw louder. Obviously we took out a lot of the air buffers and everything, but it does. What is this thing doing? It does help with the power quite a bit. Especially for no more than you're really doing to it. Alright, that looks alright. So let's see if it'll start. So it needs some more idle. Idle's a little bit high. All right. Let's turn that back a little bit. Whoa. Back it up a little. Well, there you go. It runs. All right, we've got it all put back together. Chain is sharp. Rakers are touched up. It's ported. Muffler anyway. So now we'll get some bar oil in it and go see how it cuts.